They call him Creepy Freddy. This happened very recently, and is still very fresh in my memory. My name is Simon. No, not Simon, I'm a girl, and I'm 20 years old. I live on the countryside, in an idyllic village where half the houses are vacation homes. Not much happened here, but if you enjoy nature, it's great. I'm an outdoorsy kind of woman, my favorite element being water. I do kayaking, diving, swimming, and anything else water related, I guess, in which I can get my hands on. I was on my way home from my night shift. I got this job just for the summertime, at a halfway house. It's a home for 8 recovering addicts, and there has to be always 2 people working there at night too, just in case. It's usually very calm. We play cards, watch TV, cook, etc. Easy money, I guess. So, back onto the topic. I was driving home, and as I always do, I stopped at the little secluded lake for a swim. I can never resist a good swim, and always got a bikini in the car. The lake isn't very large, but crystal clear and surrounded by a beautiful forest area. You would never know it was there if no one told you. The little road that leads down to the beach is narrow and well hidden. As a result, there's almost never anyone there apart from the occasional dog walker. I had only just started to swim out into the lake when I felt that my car key, that I kept tied onto a piece of string and tied around my ankle, didn't feel tight enough, and I was afraid it would slip off my ankle and be lost. So, instead of swimming straight out into the lake, I quickly made my way around the little rocky part of a headland. Not sure what word would correctly describe it, but then my English is limited, bear with me. If the lake is slightly L-shaped, I was in the angle and could see through the beach and car. As I fastened the string better, I look up towards my car. I'm now in a hidden spot, not far from the beach and the car, but hidden behind a corner, so I can see the car from the side. I didn't see him at first, and I had to squint to make sure it wasn't an illusion, a trick of my imagination. But no, squatting behind my SUV was a man in a bright yellow hoodie that I recognized. I didn't see his face, of course, and it was too far away to actually see who it was anyways, but I recognized the hoodie. It was Creepy Freddy. He was only 17 years old, but very unstable, and hadn't returned from his visit to his parents the day before. We had called the police, of course, but since he usually turns up on his own after a few days of freedom and drugs, the police often advise us to wait and see. He has earned his nickname Creepy Freddy after assaulting a girl with a scythe for no other reason than he felt that she was too beautiful. She wasn't badly injured, but still, creepy indeed. He had a long history of drug-induced violent outbursts, and even if he was nice enough when sober, he was a nightmare when he wasn't. I thought I was trying to get up, leave the car, and try to walk towards the main road, but what if he spotted me and ran after me? I had no idea if he was fit or not, and I was barefoot, and my orange bikini would be easy to spot. I decided against it. The risk of enduring of face-to-face with a probable druggie, violent, and probably armed Freddy was too big of a risk. I considered my options, and realized there was only one: to swim across the lake and reach the little cluster of vacation cottages that occupied the opposite beach. As quietly as I could, I started to swim. The swim took me over 90 minutes, and I kept turning around to see if I was being followed. I reached the other beach exhausted and cold. I walked up the sandy beach as a young mom and her kid spotted me. I explained the situation, and she phoned the police and fed me scones and coffee and the best waffles I've ever had. Police arrived to find Freddy gone. All 4 of my tires were slashed. I resigned from my job at the halfway house, and I hope we never meet again. Freddy, as far as I know, still not found. Flute Player in the Woods. So, this happened years ago, but I still remembered it, and thought you guys might find it kind of interesting. A little background. I am a 17-year-old girl. My family, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc., all share this cottage in a nearby campground. We've had it in the family since my mother was a teen, so since I was little, I've been going out there. Since we'd been going out there for so long, we knew the community fairly well. A lot of strong bonds have formed with the neighbors and nearby campers. Basically, everybody knew everybody. This one particular incident, my friend and I, who were about 10 years old at the time, were out for a walk. We only ever hung out when we were at the lake, so we often went hiking along the same trail to kill time, which passed by a forest in the heart of the community. As we strolled along the path, we heard a light tune coming from the forest to our left side. Our head snapped in the direction of the tune, and it came to a stop. The whole sound stopped. We shrugged it off as we were 10 years old at the time, and didn't get freaked out too easily. We continued walking as the path turned, and our backs were now to where the sound was initially heard. Once again, the light tune started up again, and once again, we turned towards the sound. It came to a halt. Now, I don't know why we continued walking away at this point, but we did. The forest was now a ways behind us when it started up again. This time I turned towards a mysterious song and started walking. The flute didn't stop playing, but instead got faster. I slowed my steps and I realized the speed of the song had stopped once again. The second we started walking away, the flutist bounced back into action and started running towards the tree line. The song ended when I was a few meters away, and the silence that followed was deafening. The girl I was with took off running towards the main road and I followed. Now, it could have been nothing, but for some reason, we didn't tell anyone about what happened. Nothing like that ever happened again, but it freaks me out, even now thinking about it. Someone who we knew was messing with us that day. A person in our small, tight-knit community was sitting right behind the tree line watching us. Why? Who knows? I guess we'll never know what would have happened if we crossed the tree line that day. So, random flute player, let's not meet. Sleep-deprived. I like to start this off by saying I do not take my experience as lighthearted as a story may come off. Please, anyone and everyone, remember to make sure your doors are locked, regardless of how safe you feel. It's an uncomfortable circumstance, and very unfortunate one of society, that we cannot always trust our neighborhood. Also, I'm writing this on my iPhone, so I apologize for any grammatical mistakes. Today is the 1-year anniversary of my experience. I, 24 female, and my boyfriend of 5 years, 29, had recently split, and I found myself living on my own for the first time. I was understandably ecstatic. The relationship had been toxic for the both of us, and our friends seemed relieved we split as well. He had moved out, and I was living alone for the first time. As a bartender, I work very late nights. The bars in my area of Georgia close at 3 a.m., so I usually home at around 4 or so. This particular night had been so slow, I was cut early around 1. I don't drive, so I took an Uber back. Now, I've been living alone for about a month at this point. It was kind of like a cottage. I had a pretty regular routine going. I'll wake at noon, out for work at 4 p.m. or so. For a bit more backstory on where I live, I always felt very safe. I lived in a cottage house, very popular in the historic South, I guess, and sat next to my landlord's house, a police officer for a neighboring town. His squad car was usually parked there. The first floor of the cottage house is actually a garage that always remained opened. There is a set of stairs that lead up to my door on the second story. This evening, his car was gone, obviously out on patrol. I didn't mind. Everyone in my area knew he was an officer, and I felt reassured no one would mess with me. Because of this reason, I didn't lock the deadbolt on my door. After getting home and unwinding, I turned on my PS to play some Black Ops. I had a lot of leftover energy and was not ready to sleep. After about half an hour during a gameplay intermission, I turned down the volume and stretched. That's when I heard footsteps. Now, I can be a bit paranoid. Instead of being irrational, I stood up slowly. I'm in the living room where the front door is located. There is no back door or emergency exit of any kind. I walked into my bedroom. There is a window where my bed sat that I can peek out of and look at the small balcony where my front door is. I didn't see anything. Shrugging off the noise, I sat back down for the next TDM. Suddenly, boom! My front door is kicked open with a force of 1,000 gads. Seriously, it was insanely loud and caused me to jump out of my seat. It took me a moment to register what was happening. I'll never forget his words. "Get on the fucking ground! Don't look at me!" He slammed my door closed behind him. I did look at him only for a moment. He was tall, slim yet muscular white. He wore sunglasses, a white V-neck shirt, and khakis. No noticeable tattoos or scars or nothing like that, although he did have a very noticeable pistol. I learned in survival magazines and articles, I'm a bit obsessed, that in the occurrence of a crime, absorb all you can safely can about your attacker. Anyways, I do what he says. I laid on the ground quickly, remembering my mace, and knife located next to my bedside. The knife may have not done me well, but the mace would have subdued him in time for me to call the police. It didn't matter now. Calmly, I spread my arms out and touched my nose to the hardwood floor. If he's just a thief, he wants my stuff, not my life. Things can be replaced. My life cannot. I heard his heavy footsteps approach me, and out of the corner of my eye, I noticed he is wearing a pair of well-kept Doc Martens. Remember everything you can about him. Without speaking, he sets his pistol down out of my arm's reach and grabbed my arms, throwing them behind my back. I could hear him reach into his pocket, and then the familiar zzz of zip ties. It took everything for me not to cry. I reminded myself that if I stayed calm for the moment, it would help in the future. He secured my arms together, then pulled out a white handkerchief and proceeded to gag me. I kept my eyes closed as he lowered my head back down to the floor. I didn't really think a lot when it was happening. My adrenaline kept me silent and still. Instinct had taken me completely. I heard him walk into my bedroom. I thought he would take the MacBook and jewelry. Instead, it looked like he was going through the drawers and clothes and closets. Then I heard some rustling in the bathroom. I'm not sure how long the process was. It was probably about 5 minutes at the most, but of course, felt much longer. I heard his footsteps approach me again, and my heart began to race. He kneeled down and whispered firmly, "I'm going to cut your tie loose. Then I'm going to leave. You will wait at least 3 minutes to call the police." He paused, and then took some of my hair in his hand. He was gentle, almost affectionate. He gave me a small kiss on the cheek. "Do you understand me?" I swallowed and nodded. I heard the flick of a blade, and he cut my arms free. I did not move. He left quickly, shutting the door behind him. I did wait. I don't know if it was 3 minutes or not. First, I called the police. He had left my phone, or not found it, which had been in a tote bag with work clothes, and not in my purse. Unfortunately, there had been a fatal shooting about 2 blocks away from me, as some of those officers were sent to my house. Then I called my officer landlord, who lost his shit and rushed back. I had about 5 officers in total, including my landlord, and a detective in my home for what felt like hours. My landlord made sure the place was thoroughly dusted, even though he was out in his jurisdiction, and the local police seemed annoyed. They asked what was missing, and I realized I hadn't looked yet. Electronics, jewelry, everything seemed intact. Then I remember my drawers and closet. All my underwear, all my socks, my lingerie, my perfume, my toothbrush, other small personal things gone. I reviewed my experience with all of them, at least 5 or 6 times, once to write down, one for a voice recording, etc. The detective and police seemed wary, then walked a few feet away from me to have a discussion. My landlord approached me. He told me that this was most likely a planned invasion, and the lack of valuables missing pointed to a possible deeper, more personal situation. After the incident, my locks were changed, of course. Patrol cars stayed around for about a week, and with my inability to sleep or understand the situation, I informed my landlord I needed to move, and I did so another week later. I guess all I want to know is, who is this man? Is he still watching me? How long has he been watching me? What did I do to deserve this? How did he know my door wasn't always locked? Will he find me again? Although I am still terrified a year later, to this day, I refuse to leave the town I love because some pervert wanted to terrorize me. I have trouble sleeping still, but the city was kind enough to give me $3,000 worth of government-funded therapy. I like to say it helped, and I guess it did. I just hope no other person has to experience what I did and deal with the traumatic after effects of such an attack. So, potential murderer, stalker, whoever you are, please, for the love of Glob, let's not meet again.